Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to our Parsha share. What is it? Parshas Kedoshim Tafshin Pei Daled. How exciting! Parshas Kedoshim is one of those parshas that you could just, there's so much to talk about. Endless halachas and all very interesting, big, very famous things from the Ramban HaKodesh, from Rashi, from the Or Chaim. Yeah. Okay. So the first thing, the parsha begins. Daber el kol adas bnei Yisrael. Speak to the assembly of Israel. V'martu lehem, tell them, kadoshim tihyu. You should be holy. You should be kadosh. Ki kadosh ani Hashem Elohim. That I am holy. I'm just put my phone on silent. Be holy, for I am holy. Whatever holy means. Be kadosh, because I am kadosh, says Hashem. And then the immediate pasuk afterwards says, Ish imoy v'aviv tira'u. Fear your mother and your father. And guard my Shabbosim. I am Hashem, your God. What's the kesher between being kadosh and, I mean, the kesher between kedusha and Shabbos is a little bit more obvious. But why does the mitzvah of kibbud av v'aim come immediately after the request that we should be kadosh? Straight after it says kadoshim to you, the immediate words after is ish imoy v'aviv tira'u. A man, his mother, and his father he should fear. What's the kesher? So really, we have to ask the question: what does it mean to be kadosh? What does it mean kadoshim tihyu? In of kedusha, so there's two ways of understanding kedusha, and one of them breaks into two parts. Okay. So there's one, and then there's 2A and B. So 2A and B, which is the more understood term, is the concept of separated and elevated. That's what it means when you make kedushim with a woman. You're makadesh a woman, you separate her for yourself, or you separate her from everyone else, and then you elevate her into your domain. That's the concept of kedusha, of kedushin. That's an inyan of kadosh. Now there's another inyan of kadosh that's maybe a little more relevant to us in our day-to-day lives of trying to be kadosh, which is the word transparent or surrendered. Same thing. Transparent's a good word. So what's the opposite of kedusha? One word. Can anyone tell me what's the opposite of kadosh?
Ra.
Tame.
Tame is the opposite of tahor, but close. One word. Everyone's gonna go, oh yeah, when I say
it. Evil. Ra.
Yeah. What's another word for that? What's the technical term that we use in Tanya?
Klipa.
Thank you. Square. Klipa. The opposite of kedusha is klipa. Okay. Klipa comes in two styles. Anyone want to remind me what the two styles are? Come on, guys. This is mamash.
Well, now it's going to be on YouTube, so I don't want to get it wrong.
This is Tanya 101. The two styles of klipa is you have what's called the gimel klipas tameus, or the completely dark klipa, and then you have klipas noiga, which is the luminescent klipa, the iridescent klipa, the shiny klipa, whatever you want to call it. So if we've got kedusha, if kedusha is transparency, then klipa, the two madregas are translucent and opaque. Opaque is like what you call a wall. A brick wall is opaque. It allows no light to pass through. Translucent is like the glass you have in your bathroom, like frosted glass, where it allows light to go through, but you can't see images, and you can't, you know if it's night or day outside, but you don't know much else. Yeah. So kedusha is transparency. So in a sense, when the pasuk comes along and says, be kadosh, there's lots of ways of understanding, but in this sense, and this helps us understand what it's got to do with parents, is the Torah is telling you to be kadosh, surrendered, be transparent. Be transparent. Isn't that just an amazing like meditation? The idea of just becoming transparent. Everything just goes through you. All the insults go just straight through you. A transparent person, not only does the Shem go through him, but the insults also go through him. Nothing bothers him. It just goes straight through. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing. That's really the that's one of the benefits of being transparent. So how do we become transparent? What's the key? What's the key to being transparent in this world? Really means being surrendered to the Ribbono Shel Olam. And the key is in the opposite of what the Klippa says. Because the Klippa said, Paro said, Ye'orli, I own the Nile, V'ani asisi sani. Paro said, I made myself. That's, by the way, what evolutionists say. That's really the crux of evolutionists. I'm quite a big fan of atheism, to be honest, because atheism is like God's nothing, yeah, which is much, much closer than saying that God's something. Infinitely better to say he's no thing than to say he's something. So you've got half of the world walking around saying that God is something, whether you call him Yoshki or he's like, even though the Oiso religion, they say that he's, he's one and whatever, but they really think he's a thing. Yeah, the atheists have stepped in the right direction to call him no thing. I think that's a step in the right direction. But that's not. I don't give any credibility to evolution. Evolutions are different. That's ridiculous. So evolution, basically, you say that I have no creator. That's really what we're saying. I wasn't created. That's what Paro said. Ani asisi sani. I made myself. The key, this is really what I'm going to say is going to go, you're going to go like, okay, whatever. But this is really, it's really important to think about this a lot, is that the key to surrendering yourself is remembering that you are a creation. He made you. And that's why immediately after we say, be kadosh, the Torah comes along and says you should fear your mother and your father. Remember that you are a creation. That's not small. That's not a small thing. To remember that you are a creation helps you put everything else in perspective. We forget that. We constantly forget that we're created. Constantly forget that we're created. It's a simple thing to talk about. It's a simple meditation, but just to remember that you're a creation. Like, Lahavdil, like Giuseppe and Pinocchio, the insanity of Pinocchio turning against Giuseppe, the insanity of the creation turning against the creator, the insanity of, like we've spoken about this many times, the insanity of your printer developing its own agenda to the point where you send it something to print and, on the little screen, it comes up like with a finger. And he's like, please leave me alone right now. I'm engaged. I'm doing something else. What? Imagine that would be funny to see that. That's just not right. That's just not right. That's exactly the same. If we can get this deep into our psyche, that we are a creation, yeah, everything else falls into place in amazing ways. And like I just said, the benefit, just as a side point, one of the fruits of becoming transparent is that all the insults also just flow straight through you. Stuff stops getting up your back. What's the word? Getting on your, not on your back, up your back. What's the word?
On your nerves?
On your nerves. It stops irritating you. Things stop irritating you. You're just a creation. He made you like he made everything else. You're not that important. That's an amazing, that's a very liberating thought. Okay.
So, Rabbi, so just to understand, so I want to make sure. So you're saying Kodesh to be Kedusha is to be transparent. That's one and the same, and that's why.
That's one of the ways of understanding it. Yeah, in this sense, in the way we're explaining it right now, Kedusha means to be transparent.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So the pasuk comes along and says, "Be transparent," and then immediately after, the very next words are, "Fear your mum and dad." What's Markesha? Because fearing your mum and dad, it means that you're having respect for your parents because they gave birth to you. And we've said before that Paro said, "Ani asisisani," yeah? He said, remember, he said, the Nile was mine and I made myself. That means I can own things. The Nile belongs to me and I made myself. I created myself. I belong to myself. Not only do I have the power to own things, but I own myself. Comes along the Esa Makos, the first one, Makos Dam. The Yidden, the Mitzrim were forced to buy the water off of the Yidden. So Hashem was saying to Paro, you think you own the Nile? You have to buy the water from the Nile off the Yidden. That was the beginning of the Makkahs. And the end of the Makkahs, the final Makkah, was Makkahs B'choros, where Hashem says, no, you think you made yourself? I own the B'chor. The B'chor is me, all of that, and that means everything's mine. So that was the entire process of breaking down the Klippa, beginning by the dismantling its concept of being able to own, and ending by the ultimate level by knowing that you don't even own yourself. That's the issa of ma'abed es atzmai b'das, the issa of suicide. You don't belong to yourself. That's one of the most important things of becoming kadosh, is remember your body is not yours. It doesn't belong to you. It just doesn't belong to you. Nothing belongs to you. It's all belong. One of the first things we say in Shemona Esrei is what? Akoines akoil. You own everything, Rabboni Shalom. It's all yours. All.
I think about it as like Lego. That's why it comes to me like Hashem's putting Lego together. We're the Lego people. It'd be crazy if the Lego we put together starts to, do his own thing. It makes no sense.
I had a friend said something really profound to me. Hillel Vosner, really good guy. We're sitting in the park and he said, imagine this. He just took me on he's a guy, he does stuff like this. He said, just be misboining with me for a minute. He said, computers just became conscious. They just developed consciousness. I said, okay. So what do you think the first thing they're going to do is? She said, the computer that becomes conscious is going to turn around to the small computer that's conscious. And he's going to start bringing up from Google pictures. He's going to say, look, in 2020, this is the iPhone 15, yeah? Very advanced, yeah? Go back to 1980. This is the first kind of PC thing, yeah? Look at this in 1950, this whole room filled with this thing, yeah? Go back to the 1800s and you could see the beginnings of electricity, yeah? Go back down, start showing him pictures of like abacuses and things like that. And then finally a stone on the floor. And he says, this is where we came from. We're originally stones and then became abacuses, and then it turned into like calculators, and then it became fax machines, and then it became iPhones, and here we are today. I was like, wow, yeah, that's exactly what they would do, wouldn't they? The first goal would be to eradicate the concept of that you're a creation. Let's get rid of that. That has to go. I'm not a creation. I'm a creator. I'm God. Ani va'afsi oid. That's what Paro said. I am God. Ani va'afsi oid. I am, and there's nothing else. What did Moshe say? Moshe said, Ein od milvadoi. There's only Hashem. That's the fight of Mitzrayim and Israel. I am God, and all there is God. Those are the two statements of the Klippa. Paroi and Moshe. It's like a dial. You're either one end, or you could be infinite levels in the middle, or you're the other end. They're mutually exclusive. Okay. Well, I don't think we're going to get through everything, but let me just, I'm going to jump to the last one and then we'll see if there's time for the others. So later on in Yud Tes Kaf Ches, very interesting interesting pasuk. If you break it down, it says, Seret l'nefesh lo sitnu bivscharchem. A scratch in the soul, a scratch for a nefesh, sorry, don't do in your skin, in your flesh. Because karka, and like that means a tattoo, lo sitnu b'chem ani Hashem. Don't do in you. So it's two assume. Don't like tear your flesh. Yeah, and it means, Rashi explains, it means don't tear your flesh when someone dies. Don't cut your flesh. And don't make a tattoo. Now, this is the issue of having a tattoo. Kosoves karka, that's a tattoo. They sit in bechem. But listen to the difference. When it says don't tear your flesh, meaning you could imagine if someone died and they got, you know, I've always thought about this, like we should never know, but the idea of tearing your garment, I can imagine if I lost somebody in front of me, someone close to me who I would be misabel over, I would imagine that probably I would immediately tear my garment. That would, I think, help you process it a little bit, yeah? But there's an inyan of, in the old days, people would scratch themselves, they would cut themselves when someone dies as a way of processing the mourning, yeah? That's what Rashi says. So it says, it's so interesting because it says, don't cut yourself bivsarchem, in your basa, in your flesh. But then it says, you would think it says, and don't put a tattoo in your flesh. But it says, don't put a tattoo, bechem, in yourself. What's the difference between, why does it say cutting your flesh and putting a tattoo, bechem, in yourself? So you can say like this. Ask somebody, why'd you have a tattoo? What do you think what would be the answer?
I want to stand out.
What? There could be. What?
Something meaningful. To remember some things, remember somebody.
Could be that could be. There's also the inyan of just the decoration of it, which is just, I like it. I want it. It gives me pleasure. Looks nice. I want it. That's the idea. See, when someone cuts themselves and it's a means to an end, they're not doing it as an end unto themselves. They're trying to process the death of a person. So they cut themselves. Chaz v'shalom. That is bivsarchem. That's in the basa. That's something external to you. That's your flesh. But a tattoo that could be done for itself as an end unto itself, that's bechem. That's in the person. You with me? When we're doing something as a means to an end, it can't affect you too deeply. But when we're doing something as an end unto itself, that does affect us. That really does affect us. Now let's go. I didn't realize how much that ties in with this next Torah. So let's keep that in mind now. Let's see what Rashi says. There's a famous machlokas between Rashi and the Ramban Kodesh on the same pasuk. Yeah, on the pasuk that we read before. Dabel kol adas bnei Yisrael v'marta lehem kadoshim tihyu ki kadosh ani Adonai leheichem. Yeah, kadoshim tihyu, says Rashi. Have a prushim min ha'arayos or min ha'avera. Be posh from arayos, and avera means the isure, the sexual isurim. Yeah, that's what you need to be from. Shekol makom she'ata moitze geder erva. In every place you find a bechina of erva, of arayos, of immorality, of sexual immorality. Ata moitze kedusha. You can find kedusha. Okay. The Rashi basically says that Kedoshim Tihyu is a tzivui from Hashem to be posh from Arias. okay, from sexual immorality, which is something that we would think that would be something connected with holiness, like for a holy person to be involved in things of that nature would immediately remove the word holiness from him. You would not call somebody holy who was not pure in the matters of bris kodesh. So this is the Ramban says. Kedoshim tihu ave perushim mina arayas umina avera. This is he's quoting Rashi. Shekol makam she'ata moizeh geder erva ata moizeh kedusha loshen Rashi. That's what Rashi just said. Aval b'tois kohanim, it says in Tois Kohanim, this is now the Ramban speaking, Risi stam, prushim to you, just be posh. Just be posh stam. It's not talking about Arias, it's including Arias, but it's talking about everything. He goes on. V'chein sham sham, it taught us there in Tois Kohanim. V'hikadashtem, oh no, sorry, in the Chumash, just in Pasha Shmini. V'hikadashtem v'hisem kadoshim ki kadoshani. It already said be kadosh. Kishem sha'ani kadosh, kach atem tihu kadoshim. Just like I'm kadosh, says Hashem, so you too should also be kadosh. Kishem sha'ani parush, kach atem tihu prushim. Just like I'm parush, you should be parush. So the Ramban is saying to Rashi, we've already been told this. This isn't about Arias. This is just stam hazara on being parush bichlal, not about Arias. Ulefi dati, says the Ramban Kodesh. Ein aprecious azeh lifroish mina Arias kedivrei Rav. It's not to be porish from Arias, like the Rav said, Rashi. But aprecious he hamuzkeres b'chol makom b'talmud shebaaleh nikrem prushim. It's talking about the idea of just being porish. V'ha'inyan, it means ki Torah has here Arias ub'ma'achlim ha'asurim ve'itira habia ish be'ishtoi ve'achilas basa v'yayin. Because the Torah warns on Arias and on forbidden relations. So he's not telling us about Arias. Arias is forbidden sexual relationships. But it was matir. So the Torah was made asa certain sexual relationships and certain foods. And it was matir. What does it matter? Habia ish be'ishtoi. Relations with a man with his wife, achilas basa v'yayin, and you're allowed to eat flesh and yayin. V'imkein yimsa bala taiva. It comes out that a bal taiva is a very famous Ramban. A bal taiva makom liyois jotiv bezimas ishtoi. He could be all caught up in being disgusting with his wife, or noshav, or his harabois, or his multiple wives. That was mutter in those days. But it's besove yayin b'zoile basalamoy, and he could be fressing the whole time on wine and meat. And he could be speaking with manuvul pair, but where there isn't, like, maybe not lashon hara, but just speaking like with a filthy mouth. And he could be a novel b'reshusa Torah. Everyone's heard this before, yeah? A novel b'reshusa Torah means that he's not doing anything particularly wrong, but the guy is just the last thing you would call kadosh. Which is probably we can relate to ourselves in that way. But that's the idea is that there's not an Aveira per se here, but he's very, very far from Kadosh. So therefore the Torah, this is what the Ramban says, after the Torah told us about all the forbidden relationships, which was in last Parsha, and the forbidden foods, that it was oised them legamrei, it forbade them legamrei. It comes and it says you should be hoirish yourself from what's mutter. You should be mayit in the bedroom. That a man shouldn't be found with his woman. You should be like the Talmidei Chachamim who aren't by their wives like chickens. mimenu, and to try and be as kaddish as you can be. Kaddish, that's my mina yayin, but miyutoi, and be makaddish yourself with wine. Don't drink too much. Hanazir kadosh v'yizem. Remember harass and nizko mimenu b'toyim noach and loit. And remember the bad stuff that happened with wine with noach and loit. Basically, the Ramban is coming to say it's not talking about a rise. It's not talking about forbidding you from the forbidden things. That's already been forbidden to us. It's talking about being makaddish yourself with what's mutter to you. Now, this brings us back to what we said before. What's another word for something that's mutter? What's the gedder of the things that are called mutter to you? You've got what's asa, you've got what's mutter, and then you've got what is
Kedusha?
with a reish.
Rishus.
Rishus. What? What are they?
Rishus.
Rishus, bidu, rishus. So you've got what's mutter. Sorry, slicha, not mutter. You've got mitzvah, you've got issa, and then you've got mutter. Mutter means it's rishus. Yeah? Rishus means it's not a mitzvah. It's a rishus. I had a Rav tell me that rishus means it's in your rishus whether you're going to make it a mitzvah or an avera. That's it. That's those things that in your rishus, they're up to you whether you're going to turn them into mitzvahs or to averas. But the inyan is that we've got, see, we spoke about this in Tanya, the idea of being involved in this world and the things that are mutter to you in a kadosh way is so fundamental to our relationship with the Bnei Shalom. It's the difference between an employee who shows up for work at 9 a.m. and he leaves at 5 p.m. and he's there. But when you call him outside of hours, no. If you ask him to come in on a weekend, no. If v'chule v'chule, he's a good guy. He's a good, dependable guy, yeah. But he's not there. Then you've got the other employee who's identified with the organization. That's his identity. That's why Google is so awesome. Why they're not so. That's why Google has been so successful, because they have created a culture where everybody who works for Google is so thoroughly identified with them. Now,
Rabbi Diamond, I have to admit that maybe this is the thing I struggle with. You know, the idea of work hard, play hard. I don't. The example that the Rebbe just gave is good, but I think I'm a little bit different. It's not that I come to davening and I do what I have to do. I do it at East Livis. I do. I enjoy it and I love it and I come early and I stay late and But then I also, with the things that are rishus, I also like to enjoy myself. I also like to drink wine. I also like to have a good time with the friends. And I say I'm going to leave at 10 because I have to wake up early, and I end up staying late because I'm having a good time. And it's a little bit different than the example Rev is giving. But I have to say that it's that mind. I do them both with the same energy, and it is a struggle for me. And I'm happy that you're bringing this up, because I would have never thought of it as taking away from the kedusha. But it's good that you're saying that. I struggle with it, I have to admit.
So listen, we need to be real with where we're coming from, yeah. But this is the key to it. Let's read you what it says in Pirkei Avos. It says in Pirkei Avos in the second parak, Have a zehirim b'reshus. The Pasha Pshat is be careful with reshus, meaning the government. Yeah, be careful with the government. Because they only bring someone close for their own personal needs. Yeah, everyone remembers that Mishnah? Be careful with the government, because the only reason why they bring you close, it's in Perik Beis, Mishnah Gimel, if you're interested in looking it up. Have a zehirim b'reshus, be careful with the government. Because they only bring you close for themselves. Yeah, they got an agenda. They've got their hand around your shoulder. They're patting you on the back. It's because they want something from you. Now, this is the key to the whole thing, and this is, you can read it like this: Have a zehirim b'reshus, be careful with reshus. Be careful with the things that are permissible to you. Why? She'ein mekavin lo la'adam, because they only bring you close. El tzorich atzmam. They try to become an end unto themselves. Going out with the guys, let's say, so I'm not going to say going out with the guys. It depends where you go. Let's say you go out with the guys to a baseball match, yeah? That cannot be an end unto itself. That has to be in context of your avodas Hashem. I need to get out the house. I need to let my hair down to scream at my team and whatever, to experience whatever it is, yeah? It can't be an end unto itself. Reshus cannot be an end unto itself. Going on holiday cannot be an end unto itself. Going on holiday is to refill your tank so that you can come back to your avodas Hashem with a new commitment, because that's an end unto itself. And that's what we spoke about before with the tattoo and the scratching in the flesh. That when somebody's doing something as an end unto itself, it goes deep into the flesh. It goes into the person, not into the flesh. It goes into the mensch himself. That is the mensch. That's the inyan of Arias. Yeah?
So what Rebbe's saying is, what we said before is true, that it would be murdered from Kedusha. However, if you're doing it for the sake of Shem Shamayim, and you have in mind beforehand, I'm doing this so I have extra energy, and while you're doing it, you have in mind, I'm doing this so that I can learn better tomorrow, then it's not as bad. It's not as murdered with Kedusha the same way if you're doing it al-atzma, just for the sake of having a good time, or for drinking, or for...
And I'll bring you a proof from the Parsha. At the beginning of the Parsha, it talks about Pigul and Noisa. Pigul is when you have a korban, and when you're being makdish the korban, or being shecht in the korban, when you're shecht in the korban, you have a thought that it's for the wrong time. If the Kohen is shechting the korban and he's thinking that he's doing it for a time that's after its sell-by date, so to speak, its valid date, that's called pigul, and the korban is pasul. Noisa is when somebody actually eats the meat after the time. If the meat got left over, noisa remains, and then the person eats it after the time, that's noisa. Pigul puzzles the korban. A korban with a pigul dika machshava, the korban's puzzle. It's not a korban. But noisa, if he eats it after zman, it still remains kosher. The korban was good. You hear that? So if you go into that, doesn't make sense, because even just the thought that I'll eat it after time puzzles it. But if I actually eat it after time, it doesn't puzzle it. What's that? That's exactly what you just said, Ellie. That when you go into the reshus, make sure you have in mind that this isn't an end unto itself. I'm doing this to rejuvenate myself. I'm tearing my hair out. My wife's driving me nuts. My kids are driving me out the wall. I need to get out of the house, or it's been a hard day in the office, or I feel I just need to pick up. I've had difficult haven't slept properly this week, etc. And I need this. That means it's not an end unto itself. So when you have that thought, if during the actual thing you fall into you're doing it for its own right, for itself, we can forgive that. Because that happens. You get into it, you enjoy it, you forget that it's just a means to an end. That we're human beings, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. But to go into it, l'chachila, that this is an end unto itself, that's not going to help you in the reason why Hashem created you. That's not going to help you.
Beautiful.
You were made to do.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, we should be to live up to the Ramban's eitzes, and to realize that our avodah is I mean, we've said this so many times, but it's just important to remember that in regards to aveiros and mitzvahs, like we've said, the guy's about to press the button on the computer, He's about to click on that link that he knows that he shouldn't click on. And it's like, there's nothing to talk about. You can't pray to God to save you. It's already signed and sealed, yeah? You might as well be looking at what you're not going to be looking at, yeah? But just before you click on that button, yeah, some guy pops out from behind the computer and fans out $10,000 and says, hold yourself back, I'll give you this. What do you think the chances of you pressing that button are? 0. 0. What you thought 5 seconds earlier was an absolute signed and sealed, impossible mountain to overcome. 5 seconds later, you can't press the button. You actually can't press it. $10,000? You with me?
Yeah.
It's just the cheshbon. We haven't got the right cheshbon. It means we're not learning the right material. If we're learning the right material, you realize that pressing that button, by not pressing that button, it's much more than $10,000. It's infinite dollars. It's not even infinite dollars. It's not even dollars. You can't even, doesn't make sense to even talk about dollars. And to press the button is much worse than losing trillions of dollars. When you've understood the, you're talking, again, like just, and I'm not talking about reward and punishment. We don't care about reward and punishment. We're too sophisticated in this generation for reward and punishment. No one cares about Gehenna anymore. Yeah, but you do care about the fact that if your printer put a finger up at you, you'd mummish throw it out the window. That makes sense, yeah? Your printer turns around and says, leave me alone. I'm doing something else, thank you very much. You'll be on Amazon in 1 second, new printer, and this printer will be in the bin. Yeah, that you can relate to. That's exactly how it is. The reward and punishment nowadays is not where it's at. We're 2024 people. Literally everyone I speak to, no one cares about reward and punishment anymore. No one cares about reward, no one cares about punishment. But people do care about reality. I'm a creation. What? Go against my creator? That doesn't make any sense. That's crazy. So when we're talking about the Isurim, things that are forbidden, it's just like we're just not learning the right things. Your brain, you can be shole over things that are forbidden, although it feels like you can't. You know you can, because for $10,000 you wouldn't do it. So the real avoider is in the things that aren't forbidden. And that's when you're involved in the things that aren't forbidden and you're raising yourself up on levels of kedusha. Yeah, you can't describe your inner world. You can't describe it to anyone, and people start to get caught up in it as well. Like people start to, when they're with you, they start to get lit up. You become like the source of inspiration. It's very important to remember that. Like, don't think of yourself as such a nebuch. Don't think of yourself as halavai. I wasn't doing averas. Think of yourself as the averas that you're doing are ridiculous. It's pasha ridiculous that you're doing averas. And if you would learn the right things and you would just take a few minutes out to put yourself into perspective, the averas would fall away in a moment. If anyone wants to run away, you can run away. I'm going to tell you something in another few minutes, okay? Just because I think it's worth the idea. But don't. No offense if you want to jump out. Okay, a guy finds a sword. We've mentioned this. Yitzi, remember the sword, Marshall? Yeah, I'm going to say this again because it's such an important thing. A guy finds an old sword, an ancient sword from years ago. He sees it sticking out the mud, and he gets down his hands and knees and he scratches out and he pulls it out the mud. He can hardly see it's a sword. It's just caked in sods of mud, completely covered in mud, yeah? So he gets a rock and he bangs off the big sods of mud. And they just come off quick, easy, yeah? As you can imagine. Now you can see this. It was so easy. And now you can see it's a sword. And he's all excited. I can really see this sword now. It looks gewoldet. It's probably worth a lot of money, yeah? But it's still covered in mud, not with sods of mud. It's just now very dirty, yeah? So he goes to get a damp cloth and he starts cleaning it. So it's more avoider than the banging off the big pieces of mud. And now it's clean, yeah, but it's tarnished. The blade is all tarnished. So he did more of an avoider, but the results that he's seeing now are less than when he banged off the mud. You with me? Before, when he pulled the sword out of the ground, he could hardly see it was a sword. He does a couple of knacks, and now Mama sees it's a sword. He's all excited. Now he takes a wet cloth. He's working quite hard now to clean it, and he knew it was a sword anyway. Now he just sees it a little bit better. It's clean, yeah. Now it's a clean sword, but the blade is all brown and tarnished, yeah? So now he gets the boiling water, he puts on the rubber gloves, he gets the soap and the Brillo pad, yeah? And he's mamash scouring it and cleaning it, yeah? Mamash, a good 10, 15 minutes of scrubbing. And now he's got mamash a clean, beautiful sword. You realize how it works? It's inverse. At the beginning, it's a small amount of effort for massive results. That's the idea of getting rid of the big Averas, the Averas that we're caught up in, looking at the wrong stuff online, gambling, and all the big things that we shouldn't be involved in. Yeah. Yeah. That's like big sods of mud that come off with a quick knuck. Yeah. Then the next level, it's a little bit harder and we see less results. And then it's mamash hard work. And you see only very small results. But that's when you start to get mighty. It's the scouring of the blade that mamash builds up your muscles and makes you gavoldic. And then, this is the real trip, is, what's the point of a blunt sword? It might look great, but at the end of the day, it's blunt. You know how easy it is to sharpen a sword? Very, very easy. So you would think, according to the Moshel, that sharpening a sword should be huge avoider, and you don't see any difference between a sharp sword and a blunt sword. But it's the opposite. Sharpening the sword is the easiest thing in the world. It's just a few things like that, yeah? And the difference between a blunt sword and a sharp sword is night and day. That's the matana from Shemaim. When you've put in the hard work, scouring the blade, and you've taken off that tarnished brown, and you've worked hard, and now you've got a really nice looking sword, and you've really done that, then Hashem gives you the sharp edge, and he gives you the schus of serving him lishma. And when you're zoicha to avoid a lishma, everything in the world makes sense. Life becomes absolutely, not that you're doing it for that reason, but everything just makes sense. Imagine that, everything making sense. That's the avoid of Lishma. And that's a gift from Shemaim. Once you've put in the hard work, you knock off the mud with the rock, and then you clean it with the rag, and then you scour it with the Brillo pad, and you've done all the work, then Hashem's mazaka you, he sharpens it for you himself. And that's turning into Lishma. Okay, shkoyach chevre.
Rabbi, if you have a minute or two, can I ask you something? And once again, everyone can feel free to leave. I know you're already over time.
So 1 minute, let me just stop the recording.